Hi everyone, this is Sam Greenblatt with esportpsych. I had the pleasure of speaking with May, who has been a Twitch streamer for over 5 years, about her identity as a gamer, a female, an Asian American, and an advocate for mental health, as well as how all those topics coincide. May is an insightful streamer who has a lot of wisdom to share, so I hope you enjoy. If you'd like to follow May on Twitch, you could find the link to her stream in the description below. So hi May, it's such a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for allowing me to interview you about things that a lot of people experience, but not a lot of people are talking about. So before we start, why don't you just give us an introduction of who you are, what your history is with gaming and streaming?
Yeah, hi, my name is May. My Twitch name is iMuffinsX3. I've been streaming on Twitch for I think just over 5 years now. So I always joke that I'm like a Twitch grandma because I've been around since like the OG days. I've really watched Twitch like grow up, and now that I'm streaming less, it's like I've watched people like make this a career for themselves, and I feel like I have a lot of experience when it comes to like streaming and like the way things have evolved on Twitch. And I have a huge passion for gaming. Like I get involved with things offline as well, like the CJNY events. I like to run tournaments. I like to be really involved in the esports community and all of that. So that's just a little bit about myself.
Great. And what are the kind of games that you usually stream?
Oh, I am actually on a Hearthstone kick right now.
Oh,
I
nice.
just reached rank 20 last night. Woo, go me!
Wow.
I really enjoy it. Like, I just made up like some random deck that is super annoying and everyone hates me, but I'm enjoying it. Yeah. Other than that, I like playing Overwatch. I like playing HOTS. HOTS is like my guilty pleasure. And I think my background is mostly in League of Legends. Probably, I've been probably playing that since like 2012. So it's been a really long time.
Oh. And you started streaming, you said for such a long time. How old were you when you started?
Oh my gosh, like a baby. That would have been, I think, my senior year of high school. So I would, or maybe like 16 or 17.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's been a long time. Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Well, that's especially interesting because one of the things that I wanted to talk to you is the role that you feel like gender might have played in your experience being online a lot, being a streamer, and just being a gamer. And my sense, and you would certainly know better than me, is that although there's definitely a ways to go, the landscape probably has changed within the last 10 years. Would you agree? And what do you think has happened in terms of that?
Yeah, I think from my perspective at least, Twitch has gotten better and worse in some ways for people, especially people that identify as female on Twitch. I think in the early stages, like it was very much a wild west, and now that Twitch has kind of set in some like terms of service guidelines and they've really cracked down on certain behaviors, I think that has really benefited female streamers. But at the same time, there's a lot of backlash from other people who are like, why should female streamers get like certain protections, or like, this should be like, the gaming community in general is known for kind of being toxic, unfortunately, and a lot of that filters through to Twitch as well. But I think generally the trend has been pretty positive over the past couple years. I remember like, before, like there would be almost like no protections, like people would just come on your stream and just do whatever they wanted and like trolled and like harassed and all that. But Twitch has really stepped up in terms of being able to set some guidelines, being able to moderate the community, and like really setting forth like a more positive example.
Sure. And I mean, starting at 17 and 18, especially before all those protective things that Twitch set up, and also, just being on, do you use voice comms on other games?
I do. I think, like, just anecdotally myself, and as well as like a lot of other friends that I've had who are female in game, we've tried to stay away from voice comms just because there are some negative things associated with that. People tend to like make comments or like blame you based on your gender, which is like kind of unfortunate. So in general, like I try and stay away from voice comms. I think they can be a useful tool, but it's just sort of like a trade-off between like kind of the bad and the good.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, have you tried out voice comms on different games, and do you feel like different communities kind of differ?
Yeah, I actually feel like some of the smaller communities. So I think there's not a lot of people I know who play HOTS, but when I am on the
Uh-huh.
HOTS voice com, it's not so bad.
Uh,
I think FPS games are notorious for this. Like
uh-huh.
Overwatch is a little bit better, but whenever it's like Counter Strike or anything like that, it's like especially bad. And I don't know if it's like just something of like the ratio of like male to female gamers in those communities, but I really think it's like kind of an echo chamber there. It's like if most people do a certain kind of behavior when there's a female in the game, like a lot of other people will follow suit, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. So how have you dealt with this? I mean, within games and in streaming?
Yeah, I think in streaming it's kind of a unique experience because as a streamer, you're kind of taught to be likable,
Mm.
approachable, friendly. You don't really want to be causing waves in your community, and I think that puts a lot of pressure on the streamer to make tough choices like, should I ban this person for saying this thing, or should I just let it slide? And I think that's one of the hardest lessons I've had to learn is to decide like the difference between someone who's like joking and someone who's like could cause a serious problem. And sometimes it's a tough call. Like you don't want to lose a follower, you don't want to lose a viewer, you don't want to lose someone who could potentially be a part of your community, but sometimes it's just necessary. And I
Yeah.
think that's one of the unique things about streaming, and not just for female streamers, but also like streamers in general, like across the board, any kind of gender.
So how have you decided where to draw the line?
I think for me, when I was starting out, I was less discriminatory, but now I've kind of, tried to cultivate a certain kind of community, tried to like, bond with certain kinds of people, or like be more discriminating when it comes to like people who harass or people who do certain kinds of behavior. It's not just towards me, but anyone else in the community. So I've had my moderators approach me about people who've harassed other female streamers and have come to my stream, and they just say,
Mm.
hey, here's a heads up. Here's like someone who's been causing trouble in other people's streams. And I just wanted to know, like, is it okay if I ban them? And I say, yeah, go ahead. Like, this isn't someone that I want in my community either. And I think that's something that's really important, and I've really treasured in the Twitch community, is just how close knit all the female streamers are to each other. That we always support each other. We always like, stand together and like make sure that we're all receiving the kind of support and information and all the good stuff that we need.
Right. That's great.
Yeah.
And I think also a lot of times there's the emphasis on the negativity in a lot of these conversations, but do you think that there's any positivity that, you know, being identifying yourself as female, you've been able to bring to the community, or any,
Mhm.
special or unique experiences that you've had because of your gender?
Yeah, I think there's definitely an element of solidarity when it comes to female streamers. Like, we all understand the different kinds of struggles that we face, and being able to support each other and being able to provide that kind of emotional support when it comes to people who are harassed, or, if you have a bad day, then you can rely on like this other community to be able to get you through it. And I think that's one of the really positive aspects that's come out of it. Like, always in the face of adversity, people like bond together, especially like,
Sure.
minority communities, which I guess on Twitch women are
Right, right.
to some extent. So I think that's really been a positive outcome of that. I've like loved watching people that started off while I was streaming, and now they're like huge, like Pokimane. Like, I love her to death, and she's
Hmm.
still like, she gives me like a shout out in some of her interviews, and it's like really sweet thinking that she still remembers, and being able to come from a place where you're more than just like Twitch streamers, you're like actually friends, and that kind of support.
That's great. I mean, in that vein, is there any suggestions or advice that you would give to anyone identifying as female who's hesitant about either entering a gaming or streaming community?
Hmm. I would just say, be true to yourself. Like, don't
Mm.
feel pressured to act a certain way because that's what you think gets you success on Twitch. Like, I've learned just watching like so many other people stream and being a streamer myself, like there's no secret recipe to success. Like the best thing you can seriously do, and it sounds really cliche, is just to be yourself. And people will be drawn to your personality. People will come and support you for who you are. And if you're facing a tough time, don't be afraid to reach out to like someone you look up to in the streaming community. Like they might be able to offer you advice or help you out, or like send you some viewers, or being able to support you in some way. So don't be afraid to reach out to other streamers. Like I think that's one of the unique things about Twitch, is that it's still at the end of the day quite a small community, and you shouldn't be afraid to reach out and ask for help.
That's great. One of the things that I wanted to talk about is intersectionality, because you're Asian American, and I was wondering if you feel like your heritage plays a role in your identity as a gamer, either from other people's perceptions or your own sense of self.
Yeah, I definitely feel like gaming is something that's a big pillar of the Asian American community. Like, I mean, it's not quite a stereotype, but I do know like a large proportion of my friends have either played games in the past or continue to play games. I think it's a way to find, a community and friends while being at home, because I think in the Asian American culture, and this is just me speaking anecdotally, there's a lot of pressure to succeed academically and follow a certain trajectory when it comes to your life. And a lot of that involves like staying at home and studying and that kind of thing. But gaming is one of those few activities where you can actually connect with people while being at home. So I think that's like one of the reasons why gaming is so popular in the Asian American community. And it's just like a great way to spend time with your friends and fly under the radar from your parents.
Right. That's great. So it's helped you both connect with people, which is a value of yours, and it's been an adaptive way to deal with some of the stressors that
exactly.
Family. That's awesome. And one of the things that really struck me when I first met you was that you were so open about the importance of mental health in gaming. You had even said that it played a prominent role in your life. And I was wondering if you would be interested in speaking about, your path and your journey with mental health and seeking to improve.
Yeah, so I don't think I realized this in the beginning when I started streaming, but now that I have been streaming a couple years, especially like you mentioned before, starting at quite an early age, and I think a lot of streamers do start at quite an early age, and sometimes in their like formative years or like late teens. And I think it really does shape your psyche towards things. I find, and this is something I struggle with now, is that making like very close connections with people, because, it's kind of a double-edged sword. While I am like very open and friendly to basically everyone who stops by my stream, it also means that, I have much tighter personal boundaries, because it's more like a safety precaution when it comes to streaming. So being able to separate like my friendly streamer identity and then also my personal life is one of those challenges that you find alone. And I think this is something that I've been struggling with, just because it's like things have happened in the past where like, you come off as friendly, but then people end up interpreting that the wrong way. And like there's instances of streamers getting doxxed and people coming to their homes, and I've had like that kind of stuff happen to me, like pizzas get sent to my house. So it's like almost an adaptive measure as a streamer, where you kind of close yourself off a little bit and be like, I don't want to get too personal because XYZ thing might happen. So yeah, that's one of those things.
Right. So you feel like because you've been in a role where you've had to put on a certain personality that's happy and friendly and generally likable,
right.
Sometimes it's hard to switch it off in your regular life, and B, another thing that's hard to switch off is the kind of protective measures that you have to put with yourself. So
right.
It sounds like forming close and authentic relationships is something that's maybe a little more challenging because of how much time you've spent forming these other types of relationships.
Right, right. And I have spoken with other streamers and YouTubers in the past, and I think they share a similar struggle in which you get kind of unsure whether people are, really interacting with you because they like you as a person, or, when they find out about your stream, it like makes things a little bit different and the dynamic changes, and, you start to question some of those friendships and relationships, which is not really a healthy thing to do. But I think sometimes like streamers and YouTubers, because of like all the exposure they have, do tend to err on the side of caution, and that really takes a toll on your personal life. And yeah, it's really tough because streaming and YouTubing and all that kind of influencer work is quite performative. So like you said, it does get kind of difficult to separate, what is performance and what is, your persona versus like what is really you.
Right. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, no worries.
Legitimately. So what have you done? You definitely seem to have some great insight into, what sort of obstacles this has presented in your life. Have you done anything in response?
Yeah, I think, again, back to the whole intersectionality with Asian American culture, it's not as encouraged to seek out mental health, treatment, and being able to talk about these things. And I think it is so important to do so. I can say myself, I was like a skeptic in the past. I thought, like this isn't really something that's useful or helpful, but it really is. And I think it's so important for people to be able to like feel comfortable seeking out help, or like even just talking with somebody about it is really helpful, and like being a little more introspective and understanding why you feel the way you feel, or like why the things that you do are the way that you do them. And I think people should just be I think it should be encouraged that people seek out mental health counselors, or programs, or just even talking to a friend about it. Like I think there's a lot of pressure in the gaming community and by extension the Asian American community to not talk about things, but I really think it is important to talk about them because they are happening. And
Right.
I just people feel alone all the time, but this is like a much more common problem than people probably think.
Right, absolutely. And that's also something that's so common of the problem, is feeling like you're the only person and feeling like you're alone in your struggles, which is why it's so wonderful that we're having a conversation like this today. So then in terms of that, you had the insight into what issues you were facing. You had the courage to go against some of your heritage programming to not talk as much about your internal struggles. Have you learned anything useful then in speaking with other people, speaking with mental health staff, anything like that?
Yeah, I think obviously the most useful thing is to just talk about it, because it like provides an outlet to your feelings. And we as like gamers and try to internalize things a lot, like like blame ourselves, or blame external sources. But just like reaching out to someone, and like just being able to like stay in the moment. I think people get caught up, like there's so much emotion that comes with gaming. You feel elated when you win something, you feel like really down when you lose. When you stream, if you get like one viewer that you've been always wanting, then you feel like a rush of joy, but then you lose them and it's like back down again. And I think I think it's really important in streaming and gaming to just stay level, being able to like take a couple deep breaths. Like I know some of the professional gamers are taking like meditation courses now. Not medication that I'm aware of, but yeah, being able to just like take a couple deep breaths and just like being a little more introspective and really staying level-headed and not feeling just like those ups and downs. Like of course it's great to feel happy and sad, and these are all natural feelings, but also being able to understand like why am I feeling happy, why am I feeling sad, and I think that'll help improve some of the things that are going on in your life.
Right. That's incredibly well put. I absolutely agree. Is there anything else that you feel like we haven't covered that you think would be important for people to know?
Um, no, I think we've covered most of everything. I just
Uh-huh.
think, I feel like what you're doing, Sam, is so important because, like I said before, this is something that's not been talked about a lot, and I think it should be talked about. Psychology is such an important aspect of any activity, whether it's like sports or gaming or just anything in life, really. And I think it's time to shake up the gaming community.
That's great. I appreciate your support, and I definitely think likewise. I mean, especially as someone who, has a public personality online, it can be especially difficult
Mhm.
to, put yourself out there and to be as authentic as you've been in our conversation. Um, but I definitely echo that importance of more people having more conversations like this.
Mhm.
Um, so, absolutely, thank you so much for being so raw and open and honest. And I hope that people in similar situations or people that could relate that might on the surface be in dissimilar situations but still connect to, one or two words that we've said can be helped by conversations like these.
I hope so too.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sam.